Once upon a time, there was a little railroad that ran between Johnson City, Tennessee and Boone, North Carolina. This line was known as the East Tennessee and Western North Carolina Railroad. In 1917, the railroad employed a fleet of Baldwin 460s, and for the next 33 years, these little 10-wheelers would serve the line and its people, who affectionately called it the Tweetsie due to the high-pitched shrill whistles of the locomotives. After World War II, however, business declined dramatically, and in 1950, the railroad was abandoned. The very next year, scrapping commenced on the fleet. One by one, the locomotives of the ET&WNC began to disappear. However, one locomotive would see light at the end of the tunnel. In 1952, locomotive number 12 was saved from the cutter's torch by a group of railroad enthusiasts who shipped it to Harrisburg, Virginia, where it found a new purpose in life as a tourist engine on the Shenandoah Central Railroad. In 1954, Hurricane Hazel struck Virginia, and the Shenandoah Central was destroyed. With no money to repair it, the owners were forced to sell their locomotive. Famous cowboy actor Gene Autry bought it, intending to use it in his movies. However, when it was discovered that shipping the locomotive to California would be far too expensive, it was purchased by Grover Robbins in 1955. And on May 23, 1957, after a lengthy restoration, East Tennessee and Western North Carolina Railroad number 12 came home to Boone, North Carolina to be the star attraction of Robbins' newly opened Tweetsie Railroad theme park, where she continues to operate today. My name is Nicholas Taylor, and when I was a boy, my mother used to read this book to me called Tweetsie Adventure. It was about a boy who took a train ride at a place called Tweetsie Railroad. At the time, I thought Tweetsie was a fictional place. I didn't know it was real. But when I did, it became my dream to visit the park and ride behind locomotive number 12. In 2008, I did visit Tweetsie, and while I had a good time, I was disappointed to later find out that I was riding behind Tweetsie's other steam locomotive, number 190, the whole time. Sometime later in life, I purchased the large-scale Tweetsie Railroad set from Bachman, and I continue to treasure it to this day. But now, for the first time in my life, I will finally be seeing the life-size version, the real-life Tweetsie that gave my childhood joy for so many years. I will finally have my own Tweetsie Adventure. There she is. We arrived at the park at approximately 10 a.m. for the park's gates to open. Number 12 was poised outside, preparing to make her grand entrance into the park. Once we had our tickets and were inside the park, I was immediately looking for spots to set up my cameras for 12's grand entrance. Find me a good place to start. Thinking the water tower. Either the water tower or here. The light's not going to be good there, so... So let's...
we got that one picture from right down there on the end of the porch.
Yeah, lighting's not very good on it. I finally settled on the platform above the tracks, and I'm not going to deny, I felt like a kid on Christmas Day as soon as 12 pulled in. Once she was in the junction, it was time to get on board. With all the passengers on board, it was time for the train to go. At the throttle of the locomotive today was my good friend Mr. Tim Smith. In the lead up to this trip, I had told Mr. Smith to let me know why she's called Tweetsie, and he didn't disappoint. After crossing the trestle, the train makes its first stop at the Frontier Outpost Station for the onboard cowboys to put on a show for the kids. While I didn't film the show, it's worth noting that when I first came to Tweetsie in 2008, my dream job was to be one of the Tweetsie cowboys, and I can safely say that dream job still stands. The train's next stop was at Fort Boone for the second part of the show. Once the show is wrapped up, the train pulls back into the junction to let the old passengers off and let new ones on.
Once again, please see that train that comes to a safe and complete stop. And the train cars are rolling backwards.
Once the ride was over, it was time for me to set up all of my trackside shots. We begin with number 12 pulling out of Tweetsie Junction with another full train of passengers. Once it's out of the junction, the locomotive pulls the train up a slight gradient along the Hacienda. At the top of the hill is Dead Horse Trestle, a 225-foot long, 50-foot high trestle bridge that crosses over Dead Horse Canyon. This trestle is unique as I believe it's one of the only wooden trestle bridges you can still ride over. On the way back into the junction, the train passes by the locomotive workshop and sheds where the locomotives are worked on and housed. It was after this that it was sadly time to leave. While I was sad for it to end, I was happy to have had one of the best days of my life. The feeling of having a piece of your childhood completed after so many years is truly amazing. And while my day at Tweetsie may have ended, my Tweetsie adventure was not over yet. But that's a story for another day.
Bye-bye.